Welcome to episode 2 of Nintendo Kill Count, the show where we count how many enemies we destroy in our playthrough of a game available on a Nintendo console. Today we are playing as Fox Mccloud in the original Star Fox. Star Fox is one of those franchises I have a strange relationship with. Up to this point, I've only extensively played Star Fox Assault on GameCube. Assault features a mix of the classic on-rails vehicle combat the series is known for, as well as more freeform, on-foot, third-person shooter sections. In general, these on-foot sections are viewed as inferior to the on-rails sections, so much so that me saying I've played a Star Fox game when all I've played is Assault is equivalent to saying I've watched Star Wars when all I've seen is The Phantom Menace. Technically, I'm not wrong, but the experience I've had is very different from what the main content of the series represents. As someone relatively out of touch with the Star Fox community, I assume most people would recommend Star Fox 64 or one of its many ports to get the real experience the series has to offer. My main reason for playing Star Fox goes back to what I said in previous episodes, in that playing earlier games and some of Nintendo's more popular IPs will lay a good groundwork for future games to measure themselves against. While it contains fewer levels than Super Mario Bros., I was curious going into it whether or not it would top the kill count from episode 1. Before starting my playthrough, I did a little research and discovered that there are 3 paths you can take to beat the game, each with different levels. This raises the question, how many of these paths do I have to complete in order to consider the game truly beaten? After all, playing one versus playing all 3 would drastically alter the kill count total. So what's the most fair way to handle this? Being fair is overrated. I'm the one playing the game, so I get to make the rules. I decided that I would start by completing Route 1, and if I enjoyed my time with the game enough to keep playing, I would also finish routes 2 and 3. For this run, I played using the Switch online version, which of course means I can utilize the rewind feature. This leads to a lower final kill tally as I won't be replaying whole levels at all, if ever. The amount of frustration it alleviates is incredibly nice, but it is something to be aware of when considering the final kill count. As always, I'll share the most interesting moments that came up as I played, as well as general thoughts about the game. Be warned that there will be spoilers for the game, as well as spoilers for previous episodes, as it's hard to compare the final kill tally without referencing games we've already completed. So be sure to go watch previous episodes if you don't want to be spoiled. And be sure to leave a comment right now with your guess of how many enemies you think I'll kill. With that said, relax and pour yourself a glass of chocolate milk as we assume the role of Fox Mccloud in the original Star Fox. Booting up the game, I chose to use Ctrl-Set-B and dipped my toes in the training mission. 2 minutes floundering through the sky taught me that unless the main campaign was easier, I may be in for a long ride. Undeterred though, I pressed on and started Route 1 of the campaign. Upon starting Stage 1, Cornelia, my first thought was, oh no, it's impossible to differentiate between enemies. The pixel count is pretty low, which is to be expected for a game this old, but man, it was hard rewatching the footage and seeing exactly what kind of enemy died. This is further compounded because the Star Fox wiki doesn't list enemy names for the original Star Fox game. I even tried referencing several walkthroughs to see if they assigned specific names to enemies, but they just gave generic ones. Initially, I handled this like Adam in the Garden of Eden, by naming every enemy the first time I saw it, and incrementing the kill count for each one I shot down. By the time I finished the game though, I had simplified the classification, categorizing enemies as either flying fighter types or turret/ground types, with bosses of course retaining their own names. The second thing I noticed while rewatching the footage of Cornelia was that the sheer amount of lasers and explosions appearing on screen made tracking enemy deaths difficult. In a game like Super Mario Bros., I just have to watch the main character, as he runs and stomps on enemies. Sure, Mario may use ranged attacks like fireballs, but keeping track of those is easy compared to lasers and flying enemies everywhere. The last thing Stage 1 taught me is that it is hard to differentiate between when I downed an enemy versus when one of my squad mates shot them. For simplicity's sake, both counted towards the final kill count. Stage 2 provided clear evidence that being one of my wingmen is not a good career move. Due to the blocky visuals, I constantly mistook my allies for enemies and repeatedly tried to gun them down. Poor Slippy was constantly yelling at me to lay off and stop shooting him. The only other thing of note was that the boss in this level was substantially harder for me to take out than in Stage 1. And no, for you Star Fox veterans, I did not go through the black hole. If I came across it organically, I would have flown through, but since I never saw it, I progressed through Route 1 in the more traditional way. Stage 3 was neat in that it had you destroying several larger capital ships. After shooting down the usual fighters, you fly through these larger ships and destroy their cores, causing them to explode. For the first time, I really spammed the barrel roll ability and learned how valuable it could be in dodging enemy attacks. Stage 4 was pretty boring. Its one gimmick was that objects would appear out of the fog very close to your ship, and you had to avoid them or risk crashing and dying. Stage 5 was my favorite level. Simply put, it's just a lot of flying and shooting, no gimmicks. This level has tons of missiles, which brought into clearer focus the challenge of whether or not to include missiles as enemies. In my mind, they are a weapon you destroy, but aren't an enemy in themselves. This may seem strange, since in episode 1, I counted bullet bills in Super Mario Bros. As an enemy. My reasoning is that the missiles in Star Fox are fired at you by enemies, but aren't an autonomous enemy themselves. They are just the means by which the enemies try to harm you, so shooting them down shouldn't count as a kill. Bullet bills in Mario are technically fired from a cannon, but we view the bullet bills as an enemy type, not the cannon itself as the enemy. Hence, it was okay to count them. This is very confusing to try and explain, but just know that enemy missiles I destroyed did not count towards the final kill tally. That being said, there were so many missiles on screen at times that I may have accidentally counted a few of them, mistaking them for enemy fighters. The final level, excluding the bosses, was fairly easy. It was a mix of dodging objects and combat, neither of which was particularly challenging. Once you reach the end, you must defeat the boss you fought in the last level before fighting the final villain, Andross. Andross is very annoying because he spams so many projectiles, and even with the rewind feature available to me, I died once before coming back and finishing him off. I completed Route 1 with a score of 51,900 points and an average score of 86% across the 6 levels. Remember at the beginning when I said I would consider playing Routes 2 and 3? Well, I decided against that. Since beating Route 1 got me to roll credits, I consider that enough to say I beat the game. The reason I didn't want to keep playing is that I don't think Star Fox holds up well today. And I think the important word to highlight there is today. I wasn't playing games at the time of its release, but it received fairly high review scores and was a commercial success. Today though, I think it's very much a product of its time. Sure, it's short enough that if you want to experience it, it won't overstay its welcome, but for me, I would recommend passing on this one. Now to answer the all-important question, what is the final kill count? As mentioned earlier, I simplified enemies to 2 categories. So in total, across the 6 stages of Route 1, I killed 91 flying fighter-type enemies and 40 turret ground-type enemies. Then we have the bosses. One of my favorite parts about Star Fox was the ridiculous names they were given, and since there were only 6 levels in the game, I thought I would share these great boss names with you all. Besides the 131 regular type enemies just mentioned, we also killed 1 Advanced Scout Mothership Attack Carrier, 1 Asteroid Destroyer Rock Carrier, 1 Planet Bomber Atomic Core, 1 Spider-Shaped Machine Dancing Insector, 2 Special Close Orbit Robot Phantron, and the final boss, Andross. Aren't those names so over the top and just fantastic? These 7 bosses, plus the 131 regular type enemies, brings our final kill count as Fox Mccloud in Star Fox on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System to 138. How close was your original guess? Not gonna lie, I was pretty shocked how close this was to a kill count from Super Mario Bros. Mario did edge out Fox, but it was a new thing. It will be interesting to see moving forward if final kill counts continue to cluster between 100 and 150, or if we get more diverse results. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and comment below suggestions for how I can improve future episodes or mention other games you want to see me play.